My name is Lillian. I'm standing in the opulent private dining room of the Pinewood Country Club, surrounded by my so-called family. The air is thick with tension, and the silence is deafening. My father, Henry, is red-faced and seething, his hands trembling as he glares at me. My mother, Amelia, is sobbing quietly into her napkin, and my brothers, Leo and Max, are glaring at me with a mix of anger and disbelief. It all started a few hours ago. I was sitting in my apartment, going over some work when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Henry. Family dinner at Pinewood tonight. Big news about the business expansion. Don't be late. I stared at the message, a cold feeling settling in my chest. For the past 9 months, my phone had been silent. No birthday wishes, no check-ins, nothing. But this morning, the financial magazine had hit the stands, featuring my face and a headline about my tech startup's valuation of $98 million. It was no coincidence that they suddenly remembered I existed. I remembered the time when I was just starting out. I was 25, full of dreams, and trying to build my logistics platform. I worked day and night, eating instant noodles and sleeping on the office floor. I pitched my idea to room after room of skeptical investors, who looked at me like I was a child playing at business. But I persevered, and after months of hard work, I secured $22 million in Series B funding. I was over the moon. I wanted to celebrate with the people who were supposed to love me. I booked a table at La Bella, the most upscale restaurant in town. I ordered all their favorite dishes and wore a beautiful green dress that I'd spent hours choosing. I wanted them to be proud of me. I arrived at the restaurant at 7 p.m. The table was set for 5: me, Henry, Amelia, Leo, and Max. But as the minutes ticked by, no one showed up. At 7:30 p.m. I called Amelia. She answered, her voice distracted. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Leo's having a crisis with his new business venture, and we have to be there for him." I was shocked. "But this is my big moment," I said. She just replied, "Next time, dear." I sat there alone, looking at the empty chairs. The food arrived, but I had no appetite. I paid the bill and walked out into the rain. I let the water soak me, and I cried silently. That was the moment I realized that my family didn't care about me. They only cared about Leo, the golden child, who could do no wrong, even though his business ideas were constantly failing. Back then, when I asked Henry for a small loan of $6,000 to buy better servers for my company, he scoffed at me. "Business is risky, Lillian. You're a girl. You should focus on finding a good husband, not wasting your time on this startup nonsense." Meanwhile, he bought Max a brand new sports car worth $50,000 when he crashed his old one. As I got dressed for the dinner at Pinewood, I decided to play the part. I put on an old, plain outfit, a pair of black slacks and a simple gray blouse. I drove my old, beat-up sedan, which had seen better days. I wanted them to think I was still the same struggling girl they had always known. When I arrived at the country club, the guard at the gate looked at my car with disdain. "Delivery entrance is at the back," he said rudely. I simply replied, "I'm here for the Thompson dinner. I'm Lillian Thompson." He checked his list, frowned, and then waved me through. I parked the car next to Henry's shiny luxury SUV and Max's new convertible. My car looked like a relic compared to theirs. I took a deep breath and walked into the club. The private dining room was grand. The walls were lined with dark wood, and a chandelier hung from the ceiling, casting a soft glow. Everyone was already there. Henry was sitting at the head of the table, wearing his expensive suit. Amelia was next to him, looking elegant in a sparkly dress. Leo and Max were sitting across from them. As soon as I walked in, Amelia shrieked, "There she is." She rushed over and gave me a suffocating hug. "We've missed you so much, Lily," she said, using a nickname she hadn't used since I was a child. I just stood there, my arms hanging by my sides. Henry stood up and extended his hand. "Look who made it," he boomed. I took his hand, and he squeezed it hard, trying to assert his dominance. I squeezed back just as hard, and he looked surprised for a moment. We sat down, and the waiter brought in champagne. Henry raised his glass. "To family and to success," he said. Everyone echoed, but I just held my glass without drinking. Leo was scrolling through his phone and suddenly said, "I saw the article. $98 million. That's insane." I calmly replied, "It's a valuation, Leo. It's not cash in the bank." Henry waved his hand. "Still, it's impressive. Who would have thought our quiet Lillian would build a tech empire?" I corrected him, "It's a logistics platform, Dad. We optimize supply chains for global shipping." As we ate, they talked about themselves. Leo complained about his latest business setback, saying the market was against him. Max talked about his new social media influencer gig and how he was going to be famous. Amelia rambled on about the renovations of their beach house and how the marble they ordered was the wrong color. I could see through their act. I saw the way Henry kept checking his watch, the way Amelia's smile faded when she thought no one was looking, and the way Max tapped his foot nervously under the table. They were up to something. Finally, I decided to cut to the chase. I put down my fork and looked directly at Henry. "The text said you had important news about an expansion?" The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Henry straightened his tie and sat up taller. He signaled the waiter to clear the plates. "Yes," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "We have an exciting opportunity. We're going to transform our family's old hotel into a 5-star luxury resort." He pulled out a thick folder from under the table and slid it across to me. The cover had a picture of a beautiful, modern building with palm trees. "Open it," he urged. Inside were architectural renderings and financial projections. Henry explained, "The hotel business has been the backbone of our family for 35 years, but the market is changing. People want experiences, not just a place to sleep. This resort will be a game changer." I looked at the numbers. "This is a huge project. Construction alone will cost $16 million, I said. Henry corrected me, "It's $18 million to do it right. And we have the primary investors lined up, but the bank wants to see some liquid capital up front before they release the big funds. We need a bridge loan of $7 million. I stared at him. "You want me to lend you $1? $7 million? Henry nodded. "It's a loan, Lillian, with interest. We'll pay you back in 2 years, 6% interest. It's a great investment in our family's future." I took a deep breath. "You said the bank is on board?" "Which bank?" Henry replied, "First City Bank. We've been with them for ages." I then asked, "And they're okay with the current occupancy rates?" Leo shifted in his seat. "Occupancy is seasonal. It's a bit down, but that's why we're making this change." I reached into my bag and pulled out a tablet. "Well, I did some research before I came here. According to public records, First City Bank filed a notice of default against the hotel 3 months ago. And occupancy has been below 40% for the past 2 years. You're not pivoting because of a vision, Dad. You're doing it because you're bleeding cash." The room went silent. Henry's face turned red. "That's a misunderstanding. It's just paperwork errors," he stammered. I continued, "You took out a second mortgage from a predatory lender in New York 3 years ago to pay for executive bonuses and new cars. Now the balloon payment is due, and you don't have the cash." Henry slammed his hand on the table. "How dare you investigate your own family? We're offering you a chance to be part of this great opportunity." I stood up. "You're offering me a lie. You ignored me for 9 months, but as soon as you saw my company's valuation, you remembered I existed." Leo stood up, his face twisted in anger. "You're so selfish. You think you're better than us just because you're in a magazine. I looked at him calmly and said, I'm just being realistic. Your business is insolvent. Amelia started to cry. Lillian, please. If we don't get this money, we'll lose everything. The house, the club membership, the cars. I looked at her and said, you won't be nothing, Mom. You'll just be like everyone else. You've been living a lie for years, relying on other people's money. Just then, my CFO, Ava, walked in. She was carrying a thick stack of legal documents. I looked at my family and said, I didn't come here to give you a loan. I'm here to make a purchase. I opened the folder Ava gave me. It was full of financial statements, tax liens, and court filings. You said the business is the backbone of the family, but it's actually dragging you down. I've known about your financial trouble for 4 weeks. I bought your debt from the New York lender yesterday and the debt from First City Bank this afternoon. My family looked at me in shock. Henry's face went pale. You can't do this, he said weakly. I replied, I own the mortgage on the hotel, the club membership, and the house. I'm your creditor now. I laid out the terms. I'm taking over full ownership of the Thompson Hospitality Group. The board is dissolved, and all executive positions are terminated. Leo, you're fired. Dad, you're retired. There's a severance check of $250,000 on the table. Take it, and you can walk away clean. Henry looked at me with desperation in his eyes. Lillian, please. Think about the family legacy. I said coldly, the name is safe. I'm just changing the management. After a few tense minutes, Henry finally picked up the pen and signed the papers. It was a surrender. I knew that this was the end of their reign of neglect and manipulation. I walked out of the dining room, leaving them behind. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was finally free from their expectations and their lies. I got into my old car and drove away, looking forward to a future where I was in control of my own life. Have you ever had to outgrow someone to save yourself?